Let's talk about Donald Trump's quantum alert. He has just signed an executive order to warn about this topic and above all to launch a migration process. I'll explain all of that and what it could mean for Bitcoin. There's a lot to talk about today. I'll cover the drop we're seeing today in both crypto and stocks. We'll talk about poly markets. I also talk about immutable because it's been a while since we last covered that. And yeah, let's talk about Ethereum also. There's a new kind of foundation, a new entity. Hello everyone and welcome to CryptoRed, the channel for crypto news. Let's start with crypto prices. BTC is at $62,000. Ethereum is at almost $1,600. The whole market is down today. The whole market is nuking. And you know what? It does not concern only crypto. It is following, in fact, the stock market. Tech stock dropped quite a bit in the United States and in South Korea also. A lot of crypto or a lot of tech stock are falling, and SpaceX also, for example. So people are starting to panic. You can feel it in the stock market and you can feel it in crypto too. Unfortunately, crypto did not really benefit from the stock market rally in the US, but it is clearly benefiting from the downside now. Anyway, let's talk about something other than the price. Personally, I remain quite optimistic over the long term for cryptocurrencies. I know I've been saying this for a while, but that is really my view. In the short term, a lot of things can happen. Ethereum at 1K, maybe. It would be sad, but it would not shock me that much. BTC at 30K, also possible. I'm not going to tell you it will never happen or it will for sure happen. Honestly, anything is possible in the short term. But if you are here for the right reason, if you are here for the long term, there is no reason to panic when we see this kind of move. Now let's move on to Donald Trump. Donald Trump has just signed an executive order to launch the migration toward post-quantum cryptography. More precisely, he's warning about the quantum risk and pushing for a transition towards cryptography that can resist quantum computers. So what you need to understand is that quantum computing could break a major part of cryptography. We rely on today, including in Bitcoin, in Ethereum, in Solana, and other cryptocurrencies. And until now, the timeline for US authorities, especially everything linked to the federal government and federal agencies, the deadline was around 2035. So 2035. The idea was by that date, system had to stop using software that were not quantum resistant. And from 2030 onwards, new products were already expected to be post-quantum. But what Donald Trump has just signed is an order pushing for a full migration by the end of 2030 and 2031. So by January 1st, 2032, the idea is that it should be over. No more cryptography that is not resistant to quantum attacks within the federal system and federal agencies and all high-risk assets managed by those agencies. And the deadlines are clear now because they are defined like in these two dates I just mentioned, 2030, the end of 2031 and the end of 2030. And the part that is closely linked to cryptocurrencies is the digital signatures. The deadline to migrate the digital signatures is 2031. And these signatures are also used in cryptocurrencies. And this is kind of the same deadline that other entities have suggested. For example, Google talk about 2029. Ethereum also target the end of 2029. We saw Cloudflare also aim for 2029. And now we have the US government saying late 2031. So we are really starting to this migration process. We have a real timeline now. Quantum computing is a real risk for cryptography and for cryptocurrencies. And a lot of people say, well, if it's a risk for BTC, well, it's also a risk for banks. It's also a risk for the whole financial system. And you know what? Yes, of course. But the difference is that banks and all these other institutions are already preparing. By 2030 or 2031, they will most likely be ready and they will have migrated. And more importantly, this migration requirement is also pushing a lot of things forward. It is pushing all the service providers working with federal entities to migrate as well. SaaS providers and all kinds of related services are moving in that direction. The banking sector is also connected to this shift, so it will migrate too. So yes, the traditional financial system will probably migrate in time. And the real risk is that Bitcoin does not migrate in time. For me, this is the biggest risk. And unfortunately, Bitcoin maximalists are not really paying enough attention to this issue. The Bitcoin core developers are not prioritizing it enough in the roadmap. I hope this will accelerate, but for now, we are not there yet. Other blockchains are already moving. Many projects have started to work on migration, or at least to prioritize the topic. I mentioned Ethereum, but we can also talk about Algorand, Aptos, Solana, and many other projects that have already started working seriously on these issues. Unfortunately, with BTC, we are not there yet. I really hope they start working on it soon. Hopefully within 1 or 2 years, we will see concrete proposal and real progress, but right now we are still far from that. So yeah, that's it for the quantum topic. Now let's move on to something completely different, Polymarket. There was an investigation from the Wall Street Journal revealing that Polymarket allegedly paid influencers and content creators to simulate fake winnings on Polymarket using a fake website. For example, there could be a bet like, will Donald Trump say the word McDonald's before a certain date? And then Polymarket allegedly paid an influencers to film themselves on fake websites pretending they had won the bet, and then publish the content on social media to promote Polymarket. And according to the report, Polymarket was paying them around $2,000 to $3,000 per month, while asking them not to disclose that the content was sponsored by Polymarket. So yeah, I believe what they were trying to do, in my opinion, was simply to catch up with Kalshi. If we look at the numbers, Polymarket and Kalshi, the two main prediction markets, were not that far from each other in October 2025. Their volumes were almost similar, but little by little, we reached a point where Kalshi started to dominate Polymarket, completely dominated. For example, look, in May 2026, Kalshi reached the $17 billion in volume per month, while Polymarket was at around $8 billion to $9 billion. So that is almost half of Kalshi's volume, even though Polymarket has been around for quite some time. And Kalshi also, but Kalshi did things in a way that was much more aligned with US regulation. Polymarket, on the other hand, had been pushed out of the United States for a while, and it has only recently came back through Polymarket US. But even with that, it remained much smaller, and many Americans are trying to bypass the restriction by accessing Polymarket with VPNs and similar tools, but still, Kalshi is far bigger. So it's quite rare to see a platform doing something, I say shady, something shady, yes. In cryptocurrencies, you can say it's not rare, but yeah, some company valued at 20, I don't know, 15 or $20 billion, this is quite rare. And yeah, it feels extremely dishonest toward users, and honestly, I do not even know if it complies with the law to not disclose like sponsored videos. So yeah, let's move on to another topic. There were a lot of very interesting news items today, and some of them really caught my attention. And one piece of news I saw that was barely covered in other media was about Immutable. You probably remember Immutable, the Web3 gaming project back in 2021, 2022. Everyone was talking about Web3 gaming, blockchain games, NFT games, and all that. Well, Immutable raised a huge amount of money in 2022, around $200 million. But now they seem to have completely pivoted. They are moving away from Web3 gaming and transforming themselves into an AI marketing agency. AI marketing tools. They provide AI marketing tools to analyze the data of the users of Web2 and Web3 gaming games. So they analyze player behavior, user activity, conversion rates, like after an application is downloaded, sign-up rates, and other metrics of that kind. They added the AI to the positioning, in my opinion, to benefit from the current hype around AI companies. But the impression is that they have almost completely forgotten about gaming. They have laid off a number of people, 29 people who were working on in-house game development, so they were let go. They basically removed almost all of the video game development side, and now they are focusing on the data layer around gaming audiences and selling solutions to a certain number of clients. And because they raised, like I said, $200 million, they said that they can keep going like this for another 10 years. So maybe that's good news for Immutable's shareholders and executives, because they will probably keep paying themselves very comfortable salaries for the next 10 years. But for me, it's bad news for IMX token holders, the Immutable token. Look at the Immutable token, it has done nothing but collapse. It reached the high of around $9 or $10, and now it's around 10 cents. That is a massive drop. And I think the token will have less and less utility over time. Web3 gaming is something people talk about much less today. I'm not sure it will really come back. And if it does come back, maybe it will return in a completely different form and not necessarily to the kind of token incentivized model we saw before. So for me, this is something that makes me very pessimistic about the immutable token. That's really the view I wanted to share with you on this topic. Now, another piece of bad news for a token, I want to talk about ENS, the Ethereum Name Service Token. There is a proposal that will probably pass because it seems to be pushed by people close to the ENS ecosystem. The proposal would move the entire ENS treasury into the ENS Foundation. So the treasury will no longer be managed directly by the DAO, the Decentralized Autonomous Organization. Instead, it will be managed by a foundation. And for me, that reduces the utility of the token. They say yes, but the token will still govern the Ethereum Name Service Protocol. Yes, sure, it's great, but controlling the treasury is one of the main advantages of a governance token. For a very long time, that was almost the only real utility of many governance tokens. Take Uniswap, for example. The main value of the token was governance, the ability to influence the DAO and its decision and to control the treasury. So I think this is very bad news for ENS. Now, to be clear, it hasn't passed yet. It's only a temperature check, so it's basically a way to test the reaction of the community and see what people think. But when I see this kind of thing, I've seen many similar cases in the past when it's introduced by the people who are very close to the team, there is a very high chance it eventually passes. I think this will pass. And for me, like I said, this is really bad news for the ENS token. You know what? Let's talk about the Ethereum Foundation. We've talked a lot about it recently. A lot of things have been going on, have not been going on well at the Ethereum Foundation. Many people have left the foundation over the past few months. And now we understand a little bit more about what may have happened behind this wave of departures. Look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 former Ethereum Foundation researchers have launched ETH Labs. ETH Labs, it's kind of a second foundation. It's a non-profit. It's an R&D non-profit, a parallel entity created to help develop Ethereum and support the ETH token. And it is clearly written ETH, ETH. They did not forget about the ETH token. Sometimes I feel like the Ethereum Foundation forgets about the ETH token. But here, this new entity is clearly designed to work on R&D, to continue developing Ethereum, and also support the price of the token. So the token has struggled a lot recently, so it really needs an entity like this. There are some major sponsors, some major backers behind the initiative. We have Bitmine, the company linked with Tom Lee. We have Sharplink Gaming, the company linked with Joe Lubin, and Joe Lubin himself is supporting this project. I also found it interesting to see Justin Drake involved, someone from the Ethereum Foundation. There are other people from the Ethereum Foundation as well. We can also see some people from Open Zeppelin. We also see David Hoffman, from Bankless, who had previously said he was selling his ETH. So in the end, he's helping this ETH Labs entity. But the big missing name is Vitalik. Vitalik is not in this foundation, the founder of Ethereum. He has not publicly supported the creation of this foundation, at least not financially, and his name does not appear. And honestly, I think he simply did not want to be part of it. Because that makes sense, because I think many of these departures from the Ethereum Foundation are also linked to a disagreement with Vitalik's vision, or with the direction Vitalik is pushing inside the foundation. I think what we are seeing is kind of a rejection of that direction, and now we have a new entity. And for me, this can only be a good thing, because we are seeing a new structure trying to develop Ethereum and trying to fill the gap that the Ethereum Foundation currently has. The fact that it does not seem focused enough on the ETH token price. Investor holders and ETH supporters, I'm the first included here, we all want ETH to go up. And unfortunately, that does not really seem to be the Ethereum Foundation's objective. Maybe it is on the very long term, but clearly in the short to medium term, it does not feel like it. So I think it's very interesting that this new entity has been created. And overall, I see it as a good news for Ethereum. And that's what I wanted to share with you today on these different crypto news stories. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.